Hello and welcome to story number 8. Now, quite honestly, I had no idea that there was going to be such a big gap of time between story 7 and story 8, but I have been doing other things, and right now we are in a pretty strict lockdown again, and I'm in the house a lot more than I would normally be. And I've had a lot of nudges from some of you who have been saying, what about these videos? Are you going to put more videos up? So look, yes, I will try my best now over the next couple of months to get some more videos posted here. This one is just a funny story. It was a mistake on my part, and in fact, I made several mistakes that all became something really quite cute and funny, but packed with a punchy uh, meaning for us all, and particularly for me. So obviously, I needed this to happen, or it wouldn't have happened. Is the way I look at it. It involves three of my sister's four children, and I need you to know as well that they, at that point, hardly ever drank any soft drinks, and birthdays, Christmas, and that kind of thing. But at that time, that really was it, and it was a treat. And the first mistake that I made was to call for them one weekend to take three of them out. And I had completely forgotten that I had bought a Diet Coke en route, and here it was, half drunk, but sitting between the two front seats. Now, three of them jumped into the car, and pretty much instantly, it would be the smallest one as well, Iona, very quickly noticed that I had Coke. And I thought, oh dear, dear, this is a bad example, Auntie B. And I thought, right, I've been caught red-handed, so look, you just come clean, tell them that, yeah, you fancied a wee Coke, and ask them if they would like a wee sip. We'll take a sip each, and it won't be coming too much, it won't be too bad for anybody's teeth, because I've already drunk half of it anyway. So as I reached out to my left to give it to Johnny, who was sitting beside me, I just said, would anybody like a drink from my Coke of can? And honestly, we just, one of those times whenever you get your words all mixed up, back to front, words, and it just was hilarious. So we laughed and we laughed and we laughed. And I said to them then, very quickly, it's just the way my mind must work, but I said, oh, look, let's turn this into a game, because after all, this is our Coke of can. So what you can do is you can have a drink from this Coke of can after you have said something that you can do. And that's what we did. Well, it was just so lovely. I asked the boys to go first, and so they did. And from my memory, this is roughly what happened all those years ago, and what we still laugh about and remember, and indeed take lessons from. The boys got started, and they were able to play football, and they were able to play the piano, and Iona was able to spell her name, and then the boys turn again, sip, sip, sip. And the boys could do quite a lot of stuff, even though they were only about 5 or 6, and Iona was quite quickly struggling. Oh, I can count to 100 after a wee bit of thinking. Very good. I'll take another little sip. And then the boys could tie their shoelaces, and all of a sudden Iona was almost in tears. She was so sensitive about it all. I can't play football, and I can't play piano, and I can't tie my shoelaces. And very, very quickly it just became such a lovely, lovely little picture, because Dan and Johnny were both very, very kind to her and helped her, made little suggestions, and reminded her that she was learning how to ride her bicycle using her stabilizers. And oh right, yes, I hadn't thought of that. And so it went round and round and round, and we all drank and we all enjoyed the Coke, and then really 4 or 5 minutes later and the game was over. But the Diet Coke thing, because it was just such a funny but yet profound thing in a way, it has stayed with all of us for years, and we have kind of drunk from it in a sense, to the degree that many years later, the boys are now 19, and not that long ago I sold them my car. Well, their parents bought the car from me for them. And just after hours of cleaning inside and outside, and about to give it to them, I suddenly thought, oh, it would be lovely to write wee notes for these boys, just wee post-it notes and hide them all over the car so that they're finding them, and add to the excitement of this lovely new car for them. And I did that, and then at the very last minute, I had a thought that I should go out and get them a Diet Coke and put it between the two front seats. So I got them a can of Diet Coke, and I wrote on a wee post-it note, I just wrote on it, I can drive this car. And, it was just the most heartwarming, lovely moment, swinging up to their house with this car. The boys were, of course, really excited that this was now going to be their car. Auntie B's car was now going to be their car. And they opened the boot and they had a look round everywhere, and they were excitedly finding all these wee funny notes that I had written them. But I have to tell you, the excitement was not as great as when, I think it was Johnny, discovered the Diet Coke. I'm not sure who it was really, but one of them anyway discovered the can of Diet Coke sitting, and then whenever he saw the wee note, just screamed in delight, and came over and just threw his arms around me. Now this was like at a time I hadn't hugged them for months, and we shouldn't have been hugging actually, but we kind of forgot ourselves completely. And it was just one of those absolutely beautiful moments, and it was not lost on those boys, not one not one bit. It's really funny how such a simple thing, such a slip of the tongue, something that was just a mistake, a simple mistake, has stayed with me. Maybe it stayed with me because it needed to stay with me, of course. But maybe, just maybe, there's a lesson in there for all of us, and that's part of what I'm doing by just telling you these stories. It has gone around my head a lot that in Ireland in particular, I don't know where you're listening from, but certainly here in Ireland, we, I think, are not very good at encouraging each other. We have a sarcasm in our humour, which isn't always nice, it's not always kind, and we are not good at building each other up, of telling each other what we think of each other. We would rather tear each other apart, or bring each other down a peg or two, at least. And yet, I think back to that day with a smile, because neither of the boys were nasty to their little sister. They were actually very, very kind and very, very helpful. And they didn't laugh at her for stalling and not having anything to say, for taking ages before she could think of something. They actually started to help her, started to make little suggestions that got her thinking, oh yes, I never thought about my bicycle, or I never thought about running or skipping or whatever it was. And it was just a lovely thing to witness. And in real life, these are lovely things to witness. And somehow, once we become adults, maybe we think it's not appropriate to put our arm around somebody else and tell them that was great, or we really appreciated it, or whatever, just to give them a bit of positive feedback. I think once we're done with, growing up, kind of childhood days and teenage days, even our parents, I suppose, don't encourage us enough. We don't get enough in every realm of life. So that has left a big impression with me, and I hope that I try to encourage other people, because I saw what it did that day to Iona, and I see what it does in life to other people. Putting people down, folks, is easy, actually very easy, but telling them something nice and good and positive and kind, encouraging, it is actually not that hard, but we find it hard. So then we have to ask, why do we find that so hard? And then I suppose, there is this difficulty that we all have in life, where we so easily focus in on what we can't do. And that was very apparent that day in the car with that, 4 or 5 minute game, that it was actually easy for Iona in particular to think, gosh, I can't play football and I can't play piano. And she was getting a little bit sensitive about it, a little bit annoyed. And I think in life we do that too. We think immediately about what we can't do. And we certainly do what she was doing and comparing herself to her older brothers. And we do that too. We look around and we think, I can't do this and I can't do the other. And again, I have to learn from that, and I suppose we all in life should be learning from that. To go easy on ourselves for a start, because we don't know the skills that we're going to acquire later in life. We don't know the jobs that we're going to do. We don't know the new things that we're going to have to tackle that make us very capable in an area that right now we would never even think we would be involved in. And I know that is true for Iona, because the boys, and in more than one area, because the boys have actually dropped their piano for sport, largely for football in particular. And they're brilliant at it and they're playing at a high level. But Iona is the one who's playing the piano at a high level, and in fact accompanying people in assemblies and big group settings. So she's an accomplished pianist nowadays. But in those days she wasn't even learning. And she couldn't imagine, that I suppose she would be where she is today. So we have to be easy on ourselves and give ourselves a bit of slack, as it were, and realise that we are not the same as the people that we are maybe even friendly with, or the people in our family that we compare ourselves to if you're still young and growing up. It's just good to be you. It's good to identify with your strengths. And yes, admit your weaknesses, but grow in your strengths. And if you need to grow in your weaknesses, yes, maybe a bit, but major in on your strengths for sure. That way you can achieve a lot more in life, and I suppose you'll be a lot more content too. So my very final thoughts on the Cook of Can go something like this. Each child was being honest with a statement before they took a sip and enjoyed the Coke. And for some of them, they actually had to say honestly that they couldn't do certain things. And that was right and proper. And you know what? In life, we are no different, folks. There are things we can't do and we will never be able to do. And then there are things that we are pretty good at and we find maybe naturally quite easy. But now at another level for me, at a spiritual level, a faith level, I know for sure that the analogy does break down, because the Coke of Can is a great symbol for many, many things. It's a great thing to encourage us with. But actually, there are times in life whenever we need to say, a bit like Iona in the car that day, I just can't. I can't. The truth is, I can't do the things that the boys are doing. At least not yet. But at that moment in time, the truth for her was, I can't. And for me, I realised at some points in my life that there were things that I couldn't achieve spiritually, that only God could achieve. And that was a very important discovery for me. And probably the biggest and the most significant of it was the acceptance, coming to see that the faith part, the salvation part, the knowing where I was going to be in life after here bit, that was all taken care of by Christ. So no work on my part, no good things that I was doing were ever going to be enough. And anyhow, how could you measure it on earth? How could you be sure that you'd done enough? How could you live in sort of a freedom and in a lack of fear this side of eternity if you never know how much you have to do in order to gain this ticket into heaven, as it were? So once I realised that, then I was free. I had freedom to live. And it's been good. So folks, there are times in life whenever you can, and you should. It would be wrong not to. But there are other times in life whenever you need to just humbly say, I can't. Whether that's in the physical realm, where something is beyond you, or whether it is in the spiritual realm, which for me, of course, is very, very real. So look, I hope the wee analogy, the little story, the little mistake on my part, a slip of the tongue has given you a few things to think about. All right, see you for the next story in hopefully a short time.